Welcome to this week's Business Organizations lecture regarding the formation of corporations. During this lecture, we're going to conduct a brief review of last week's introduction to corporations and the things one should consider when contemplating uh, the formation of a corporation as opposed to other business entity types. We will also discuss the key features in forming a corporation. We'll examine the information needed for the creation of the articles of incorporation when forming a Colorado for-profit corporation. Finally, we will review the agenda required for the first organizational meeting. Our main learning objective for this week is to provide you with the information necessary to conduct your first collaborative in-class session as you begin your semester-long corporate formation project. Let us briefly review last week's lecture regarding an introduction to corporations. Please recall that a corporation is a legal entity created by the state to carry out business. There are several types of corporations that may be formed. We have the ability to create a foreign or domestic corporation. You'll remember that a domestic corporation is one that is formed in the state of its operation, where a foreign corporation is one which is formed in a different state within the United States of America. In this context, a foreign corporation is one which is foreign to the state of operation and not an international corporation. You will notice that among the types of corporations that are commonly referred to as S corporations and C corporations, however, these corporations are identical in their formation. The S corporation simply refers to a small corporation that has made an Internal Revenue Service decision to be taxed and treated as though it were not a corporation and thus avoid double taxation. Some of the advantages of a corporation are that it provides limited liability for the shareholders and ease of transferring ownership and the ability to make corporate deductions and the continuation of its existence as opposed to a sole proprietorship which could end upon the death of its owner. While corporations can in theory exist perpetually. For example, the DuPont Corporation, which provided gunpowder to the American military, was founded in 1802 and is still in existence more than 200 years after its formation. Some of the disadvantages of the corporate formation are the imposition of double taxation, the hard work and complexity of forming and maintaining the corporate protections, and the centralized management which may restrict innovation. Not many people like to burn money, but entrepreneurs like Bill Gates have proven that through hard work and innovation, among other concepts, the corporation can provide the opportunity for enormous success. Double taxation is the concept that the corporation will pay taxes on the income it generates, and when the shareholders receive their dividend income, they too will pay additional taxes. So the obvious question is, why should I pay twice? Some of the things to consider when forming a corporation include the pre-incorporation activities by the promoters, The selection of jurisdiction in which to incorporate, and by this we generally mean the United States state of choice, the corporate name, the development of the articles of incorporation, and the post-incorporation activities necessary, such as bylaws, corporate supplies, and organizational minutes and meetings. One of the key individuals in the formation of a corporation is the promoter, who recognizes that there's a need and organizes the structure and the formation of the corporation. Promoters select the corporation name, and they must determine if the corporation name is available in the state of their incorporation, and they may reserve the corporation name while the incorporation activities are proceeding. Corporations are planned and developed by the promoters, who often engage in activities that require them to assume personal liability. For example, an incorporator may sign a lease for office space, and unless and until the corporation is operational and it agrees to assume the office space liability and release the incorporators, those promoters will remain personally obligated to pay these lease terms. For that reason, promoters will request the investors make an irrevocable commitment toward the formation of the corporation, so that upon the successful launch of the corporation, the promoters will be able to remove their personal liability for items such as an office lease. Now, the corporation name must usually suggest that it is, in fact, a corporation by including the words such as corporation, Inc., or limited. The document which creates the corporation is called the Articles of Incorporation. One of the key considerations in deciding what state to incorporate is, what are the particular laws, and are some more flexible and permissible for the desire of the incorporator and investors than maybe some other states are. So when the promoter selects this name, they have to determine if that's available in the state of incorporation. They have to reserve the name for the prospective corporation while the articles are being prepared. They have to register the name, and if they were going to deal in more than one state, do business in more than one state, they would have to reserve that name in the foreign jurisdiction. The incorporators must also create bylaws, which are the internal operating rules which the company will follow. However, bylaws are not normally published or on file with the state. They are private. They are to be used by the corporation. Now, once the articles of incorporation are filed with the state, the next step is, which is required by the promoter or the incorporators, is to conduct this first organizational or first meeting to commence the corporation's business. It is at this time that the shareholders, who are also known as the investors in the corporation, will elect a board of directors. They may determine who the executive officers of the corporation will be. And at this organizational meeting, they may also release the promoters from personal liability for their pre-incorporation obligations, such as signing a lease for the office. Now, the elements of the article of incorporation include such items as the name of the corporation, its address, the name and address of the registered agent, the purpose of the corporation and the description of the classes and kinds of stock, and the names of those incorporators. The following is a list of information needed to prepare the articles of incorporation. Because the overwhelming number of corporations are formed in United states, each may have different rules and regulations. For the purpose of this course, we are going to elect to form a corporation in the state of Colorado. Here you see the information from the Colorado Secretary of State's office. Please notice the URL of the Secretary of State's online services. You'll be able to perform many, if not all, of the functions needed to create your corporation. Please review these slides, which contain reproductions of the actual articles of incorporation that you will need to form your corporation. After you have successfully completed the articles of incorporation, your next step is to conduct the organizational or first meeting of the corporation. The agenda for the first meeting includes the election of the board of directors, the appointment of executive officers, and the adoption of bylaws. The acceptance, perhaps, of pre-incorporation subscriptions, which were necessary, indications and commitments from the financial investors, as well as the acceptance of pre-incorporation contracts and assuming the obligations initiated by the promoters. The agenda will also include approval of the corporate seal and of the stock certificates, among other things. Some of the additional agenda items will include banking documents and accounts, as well as a determination about whether or not the corporation will elect to be treated as a subchapter S corporation for tax purposes. One of the annual requirements of a corporation is to conduct an annual meeting with its stockholders. And if we were lucky enough to own a share of Berkshire Hathaway stock, we could attend their annual stockholders meeting and perhaps meet the chairman of the board, who is billionaire Warren Buffett. You see here that those stockholders actually fill a stadium in Omaha, Nebraska. So with this information, you should be able to begin your organizational efforts to create your corporation.